We're gonna give it another minute. Hey Mo, how you doing, man? Haven't seen you in a bit. It's good to see you.
Good to see you again. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. All right. It's two after. We'll give it another minute or so. Mo, you got any good jokes? Neither do I today.
No jokes, Mike. I'm waiting on you.
Man, I usually got a couple, but nothing today.
You gotta come. You gotta find a couple of them. That's how you start the show.
That's right. That's how we always start the show. It's just one of those where long weekend and a short night made me a little tired, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We'll skip it today. We'll give you a break today, Mike.
There you go. I think everything that I have today is so cheesy and so bad that it's just people would rather not hear them, I think, you know?
All right, all right.
Did you hear why the turkey crossed the road?
No, why did they do that?
Because it wanted to prove it wasn't a chicken.
There
Mm.
you go.
What else was there?
That's one. One more.
What do you call twin octopuses?
What do you call them?
Identical twins.
Identical twins.
There
There you go. There's your two for the day.
you go, right? They're cheesy, but that's all I could think of on a Monday morning.
Hey,
One more for you.
Oh, you tell me. Tell me what you got.
Did you hear that laughing too loudly is illegal in Hawaii?
No, why?
They only permit aloha.
Ha, ha, ha. Only aloha. Thank you, Tisha. That was great.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Or almost see you. I can hear you. All right, we got 4 minutes after. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna log in. Hopefully, can you guys see where it says Fresno MLS there on top?
Yes.
All right, so let me go and we'll put in Bakersfield MLS. Kings County Connect. Actually, you know what? I might have to go back to Fresno. I don't think I have this one saved in my computer. Let's take a look. Ah, it did work. All right, good. All right, we're in GMLS. They're all Rapattoni based. So as long as you're on Rapattoni, it really doesn't matter. So let me just kind of, oh, I probably should have read that notice to everybody. Let's see if it'll give me that notice. Hit okay. I already even passed the notice. I always try to read the notices. That was about a fraudulent buyer that's been doing trying to submit offers both in Kern County and in San Luis Obispo. All right, so Rapattoni MLS is the service provider. So whether you're in Kings County, Kern County, or Fresno County, you're using the same MLS. In Tulare County, we have a different MLS. So this doesn't work for the Tulare County Flex MLS, unfortunately. We'll do a different training on that. But they also don't have the good information that we have on here. So this is really going to help anybody, again, any county that we're in that is not Tulare County. And so when you get to the home screen, which is where we're at here, what you want to do is go to interactive map. So searches, go to interactive map. This is a training that I do often. I do it, about 4 times a year. I do it once a quarter. And what you see on your screen, the blue ones, if you kind of hover over them, are listings. Green ones, and whenever you see a number, like in this little area here, that just means that there's 3 listings within that circle. And so I'm going to zoom out, and you can see that the map in the Bakersfield area looks really, really busy. So what I do is I go to show and hide, I go to checked only, and it clears the map. And the reason that it clears the map is I haven't told the system what to search for. So I always recommend that when you go there, you go to show hide, checked only. What that's going to do, it's going to clear the map so you're working with a clean screen. And now what you do is you go to the next tab over, which is layers. And all of these things are really cool because now you can go in and start looking at parcels. So for example, you're ever driving around and you want to know who owns what, and you go into like a residential area. If there happens to be a vacant lot, now you can go in there and get to the vacant lot. And these all have buildings on it. Let's see, like this one on the corner is vacant. This one on the corner is vacant. And if you click on it, it'll tell you who owns it, right? And you can actually go in here and click on any of these that are vacant because they don't have any structures on them. The structures are little kind of gray things here. And now you can find out who owns the map. Sorry, who owns it based on just looking at the map. You can go to parcel acres and start looking at, it'll tell you the measurement on it, 0.21 acres. You can see where these have structures. And by zooming out slightly, this one has nothing on it, right? So if you go in, it's a half an acre lot with no structure. And so this is what's cool about some of these areas. So let me unclick these. The one that we're gonna recorded sales. These are cool. Past 0 to 3 months, anything that is sold in this area. So if you're looking at for comparables, this is a great way to do it. Last 4 to 6 months, last 7 to 12. This is what's sold in Bakersfield in the last year, guys. Let me zoom in, give you guys an idea. Let it populate. Tell me it's not a healthy market. But you can also tell where your commercial areas are at because they're not going to populate. But look at all this that has been selling. It is an absolutely fantastic sales area in Bakersfield. Look at everything that's been selling. If you go to 12 months, 36 months, it's almost, it looks like it's almost every single address until you start zooming in. And by looking at this, you can start looking at what hasn't sold and you can start doing, you know, I would say farming around what hasn't sold. And that way you don't go after somebody who sold recently or bought recently. And so that's how you check for that. What we're covering today is not that. I mean, it's there. We covered it. But what the focus today is here is under foreclosures. I'm going to zoom out on the map a little bit. All right. So here's Cal State Bakersfield. Foreclosures in the last foreclosure notice a default in the last 30 days. So we zoom out. This is your notice of default in the last 30 days. This is your notice of default in the last 31 to 60 days, in the last 60 to 90 days, 3 to 4 months, 4 to 6 months or longer, trustee auction dates. Let me clear all except for the trustee auction dates. When it comes to the trustee auction dates, these properties have been through the foreclosure process long enough for the bank to be able to do a complete foreclosure and sell a trustee sale on the borrowers. And so when you get to these, I'm going to pick some here just randomly. Here's this property at random. They're all going to be sold at the Truxton at that you see this 1501. No matter which one I click on, they're all going to say 1501. No matter where I go, they're all going to say 1501 because that is the Kern County Courthouse. And so when it says the auction, they're all going to have that same address. So don't pay no attention to that. What you want to pay attention to is the site address. This is the property. And if you do a quick search here, we all hate Zillow, but let's go to Realtor. Actually, I don't hate Zillow, but yeah, I just know that they're not accurate. It'll tell you it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, real small, 680 square foot, 6,000 square foot lot. Last sold and for $15K, 1978. So these people have owned it for a long time. It says estimated value is 157. I doubt it. In this address, looking to be in that shape, no way it's worth that kind of money. But even at 6, it's probably worth 100, right? Maybe 120 retail. And if you look at here, if you look at the report, it didn't tell you the property address, the document number, recording date, and when it's supposed to sell. It's supposed to sell on the 5th. This is in approximately, let's see, let's take a look. That is next week. So that is in about 9 days. In about 9 days at 10 a.m., the auction amount is 126. I would put that at retail value. No one's going to pay 126. If it does a no sell, then the bank typically forecloses. It'll go back and it'll get listed as an REO. But this is where you get some of that information from. And so it just you definitely want to do your research, but that's a property there. That one, they don't have any equity. So let's go back over here just randomly. We'll pick this one over off of Rosedale. Here's the address here. You do a quick right search, right click. We'll go here. Already that looks like a nice property. Pool, backyard, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 3,700 square foot on almost half an acre lot. Last sold in 2006 for 617. So I put it up by really close to about $900 to $1 million. So it's an $800 to $1 million property. I haven't looked at it. I'm just guessing here. And so what you want to do here is you want to look at the report. When you pull up the report, is going to tell you again, this one has a sell date on the 10th, so that when you have about 14 days, so you have about 2 weeks before it sells. Auction amount 785 on a property is probably worth somewhere around $1 million. And so this is where you get some of those properties, and you definitely want to do your homework on all of these. And again, I'm pulling these up at random. And let's go to this part of town. This one here. Zillow's the first one, so we'll go ahead. Estimated value 471, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square foot. You know the neighborhood. Hopefully, some of you do in Bakersfield. You can see what it's worth. Let's see what it's selling for. This one has a sell date of 2 days, so this one has a Wednesday. It's supposed to be at the auction. 264. This is a good one, guys. 471 is estimated value. These borrowers have somewhere close to $200,000 in equity. If they don't do something before Wednesday, they're going to lose the house or lose everything. So this one could be a little bit too late to do anything with. It's worth a phone call. It's worth, you know what? This is not even worth a phone call. This is where somebody getting in their car, driving, knocking on the door and saying, hey, look, your property's coming up as a trustee sale. You can print up this document here. You can just hit print and show them. And show them they have a ton of equity. And if you had a cash buyer, this one here, because of the short time, might be too late to do anything with. But these that you see in red are always going to be cash buyers only. So anytime you're doing the trustee auction dates here, these red ones are typically not enough time for you to try to do a listing with these borrowers, because the time is gone. They sat on this for too long. They should have listed it 6 months ago, 5 months ago. Here's another one. This one has an auction date of also on Wednesday. It looks like it might have been just a second, because they're only behind $16,000. That's the auction amount. And so you want to check to see if it's a second or not, and you would just have to do your research on this property. But it's again, when you go to these red ones, do not go after the red ones for a traditional listing. There's not enough time left. So let me unclick those. Let me click all of these. It seems like a lot, and it really, really is a lot. The reason it's a lot is obviously through COVID, we haven't worked in the state of California, and in most states for that matter, they haven't worked through the backlog of foreclosures and pre-foreclosures that were happening during COVID. What the banks didn't want to do is they didn't want to flood the market with a bunch of foreclosures, plus they're scared to get sued. And so they have to do this foreclosure process in California that's very long and very tedious, and they would rather work with the borrower to help the borrower get caught up. And what do we know, right? We know is that a lot of these loans, especially the ones prior to COVID, are paying a much higher interest than the ones that were refinanced or done during COVID. So the bank, there's a benefit there to them to try to get them to get current, stay in the property and get them to stay. So again, there's so much of this backlog because of all those, was it 3 years of no foreclosures that were allowed in California? And so they're going to slowly start processing them. They don't want to flood the market with them all at once. I would tell you that on these ones, let me go back to the beginning. On all of these that say 30 days or less, that doesn't mean that they're 30 days behind. Let me give you a little bit of an education for those of you that haven't heard me say it before. When it says default last 30 days, that means that they received a notice of default from their lending institution in the last 30 days. However, that doesn't mean that they're 1 month behind. Because California is so expensive of a state for banks to foreclose in, what happens is, let's say that somebody didn't make their January payment. Well, let's go back further. Let's say somebody didn't make their December payment. In December, the bank would have sent them a notice, hey, you haven't made your December payment, you got to get caught up. In January, the bank would have been like, hey, now you're officially 30 days late. What are you going to do to get caught up? They probably would have started a payment plan. If they didn't make their December and January payment, in February, the bank may do a notice of default, because now they're like, hey, the people aren't responding. It's been 2 months. We're going on the 3rd month. Let's record a notice of default. So when you see a 30-day late, it's not really a 30-day late. For most banks, it's actually a 60 to 90-day late to get to this point alone. And that's just because we live in California, and it's a very expensive process for the banks to foreclose on a property. So just because it says 30 days late, it doesn't mean it's 30 days late. In most cases, it's 60 to 90 days late before the bank records it. So what happens in this situation is the person in charge of paying the bills in that house, because of whatever's going on in that house. Sometimes it's a health issue, sometimes it's substance abuse, sometimes it's loss of a job, We see a lot of health stuff for reason for foreclosure. There's always going to be foreclosures. There's divorce, separations, there's everything, right? Death in the family. There's all kinds of reasons people foreclose on. It's not always, you know, just because they're late and it's not always because of the pandemic. And so what you want to look at here is you want to have empathy and compassion for the borrower. So just remember that oftentimes the couple hasn't even talked, or the people in the house haven't even talked to each other. And this is when the conversations are happening. So if you're going to go after these 30 to 60 days, just be careful, because a lot of these are so early in the process that a lot of borrowers find a way to do some kind of an agreement with the finance institution to get caught up. And so for my purposes, is I used to not check that. I used to just skip them, and I would do everything in between the two. I wouldn't do the trustee auctions, and I wouldn't do the 30-day defaults. Now you can, it's completely up to you. I would do everything in the middle. And there's so many of these that you could really do it by region. But by doing these, then you can start separating them by homeowner occupants and those that are investment properties. And then you can just start going after them in different ways that way. But look at all of this. And I can move the map around. Here's what you have in Wasco, McFarland. Here's what you have in Delano. Haven't seen that many in Delano in a while. So that's actually, I would go after all of those. If we zoom out, we can go to, is there any early mark? Too small of a town? Yeah, nobody's losing it there. Pixley, nothing there. If we make it all the way up, is there anything in Tipton? No. Just because we don't use the system in Tulare County doesn't mean it doesn't have Tulare County information. It does. It's right here. Here's your Porterville area. Here's everything coming up. Oh, there's one up here. Kimberly, Romero, Lopez. Let's take a look at what they got. I'm curious. Success Valley Drive, 430,000. Huh. Delinquent amount is 27,000. So that one would be a good one for somebody to go after. Here's all the other ones in Porterville. Wow. Yeah, this is a great neighborhood right here. Jose Martinez. Behind $10,000. Put that up, save it for later. All right, so let's keep going. Let's go over to Tulare.
Mike, I have a question real quick.
Go for it.
I'm looking at one that says that unless that's an error, it says a loan amount of 315 and a delinquent amount of 569,722. Is that
569?
yeah? So it's like the delinquent is more than what the loan amount is.
Yeah, so that means that there's probably a clerical error unless that bank did two loans and they're foreclosing at both at the same time. It is very common on a newer loan, especially if they haven't paid on it for very long, that they've added tons and tons of fees. Now, another thing to look at, Mo, is with something like this, is let's say that they owe 350,000, and let's say that they owed that prior to COVID, like they bought this and it was going into foreclosure like in 2020 when COVID happened. They have 3 years of non-payment. An attorney's fees on these foreclosures on are average somewhere about 30 to 40 grand, right? On a regular foreclosure. Sometimes they're half of that. You multiply that by a couple of years, that's probably what you're seeing there. And so what they've done there is they made it nearly impossible for those borrowers to get out of that hole. And what that bank will probably do is it'll probably go no sell at the auction. They'll collect the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac insurance money because they're paying private mortgage insurance. They collect and then they sell off the property. And but usually when you see like that, it's typically a clerical error. I've never seen one quite that high. The highest one I've seen was like about 86,000, just under 90,000 in attorney's fees. And so that's the highest one I've ever personally have seen. But it doesn't mean that there's something out there where it couldn't be higher.
Oh, Mike, one more. Sorry to kind of
Okay.
derail you, but when these banks collect from the Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, what they collect the delinquent amount, or they collect the whole thing?
No, it's an insurance, right? And so there's typically a built-in process where the loan is paid off by Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae to the bank that funded it. And then Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac gets the property back to them, and then they sell it as an REO property.
Okay.
That's typically the way it works. So any of these properties where there was a PMI insurance, most of these banks are going to go through the process, do a no sell, collect the insurance money, and then give the property back to whoever insured it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
You're very welcome. So here I'm in the Visalia area, guys. So if any of you are paying for MLS. That is not what we use in Tulare County is Flex MLS. You don't have access to this Flex MLS, but here's Hanford, here's Lemoore, here's Kingsburg, here's all these community properties. Here's your Fresno market, guys. I mean, there is some great business to be had here. And that's all our notice to defaults. There's actually more. You can look at all the red ones. There's so much business to be had. And, I have always said that we're fortunate to be in real estate the way that we are. I think we have a responsibility to our clients. Give me 1 second to try to stop the share. And so we have a responsibility to our clients to help them whenever we can. As a realtor or a licensed realtor, we have a responsibility, not just to our clients, but to our community, to really encourage them and educate them when they're going through some tough times. And when it comes to these pre-foreclosures and these distressed properties, there's a ton of them, guys. There's quite literally a backlog since 2020 when we're in the middle of COVID, right? They put a stop on all foreclosures. So we're at the beginning of 25. COVID started in March. They put in the stop in about April. So we have almost 5 years of foreclosures that have been mounting up, and they have to get sold, and they're starting to get sold. You're starting to see the foreclosures. You're starting to see them on the MLS. Very little. You're not seeing a ton. You're not seeing a flood. And that's what the banks are trying to very careful to not do, is to flood the market with a bunch of foreclosures. But we know that they're not going to sit on it much longer. And so it is really, really important that as real estate agents, you start running these reports that I just showed you how to run. Don't call. I mean, you can call if you want, but I want you to think about putting yourself in the shoes of that borrower, whatever the reason is that they're behind. Death, divorce of a family member, anything like that, loss of a job, an illness, whatever the case might be. Are they getting phone calls from bill collectors? If they're behind on their house, they're probably also behind on a bunch of credit cards, maybe some utility payments. Maybe they've already lost their car. Maybe they're also behind slightly on their car, or they're keeping their car current so they have a way to get back and forth from work, right? And so you really got to kind of put yourself in their shoes and start thinking like a borrower or a person who is behind on bills. Are you going to answer the phone number to a phone number that you don't know? Maybe you will, maybe you don't. It's a game of chance. Number one, you got to find the phone number and hope that it still works. Number two, you're working on a list of just trying to make phone calls when these people are getting calls and calls and getting harassed by bill collectors. It is, in my opinion, and where I had the most success with this through 2010, and even before I was licensed, was knocking on doors. I wouldn't go out there with a suit and tie. I would go out there with a polo shirt, or for a lady, just go out there dressed professionally, but not too nice. Like, you don't want to go out there looking like you're ready for a dinner or prom, right? And you want to start knocking on the door and have the report with you, or have it in the car and say, hey, look, I'm a local real estate agent. My name is Mike. I work at Century 21. The reason I'm knocking on your door today is this address came up. Well, first of all, you got to make sure that you have the homeowner. You don't want to tell this to the kids. You don't want to alarm the kids of the people. You want to make sure that you're talking to the actual homeowner. Once you know you're talking to the homeowner, it's like, hey, look, as you know, your property came up as a pre-foreclosure. I'm a real estate agent. I think there's ways that I can help you put the equity back in your pocket. Did you know that that equity belongs to you? And the reality is that most of them don't know that. Most of them are so emotionally beat down because losing your home and getting behind is such an emotional process that they don't realize that that equity is theirs. I pulled one up earlier that had about $200,000 in equity, roughly, right? Even if they sold it for less than, because they probably don't have money to do repairs, even if they sold it, say $50,000 under market, that's still $150,000 in equity that those clients had. And after they pay commissions and fees and do all of that, they could probably still get a check for 80 to 100 grand in their pocket. If you are talking to a family who's in the middle of losing their home and is just in a world of hurt, and you have a way to put $80,000 in their pocket, it's life-changing, guys. More importantly, because if they lose this house, they're going to be homeless, right? They got to go live somewhere and they have no money to do it with. Putting that money back in their pocket also stops a foreclosure from showing up on their credit report, and they can buy a house instead of a 2-year waiting period like on a bankruptcy, they can buy a house as soon as their credit score is high enough to do so, and they're financially stable enough to buy it. And so with that $80,000, even though their credit might be really, really bad in the moment, they have $80,000. That's enough for hopefully go find a rental with multiple. They're going to go find a rental with that kind of money, right? And they can get back on their feet and they can start fixing their credit and they can start breathing again and living again and feeling better about themselves. And the reality is that there is a ton of families in these. Let me show you another one. That was Bakersfield that we were focused on earlier. Now I'm all the way up in Fresno, and I'm going to just very randomly pick some out here by the airport just because I see the airport. So this was the original loan amount, right? Look, they bought this one after COVID, so they probably have a really, really good interest rate. Here's your trustor, here's your beneficiary. If you look at your report on this property, the property on this one this is the address. So you do a right click. We're gonna really quick. I'm just gonna click on the first one. This is 464 estimated value, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,100 square feet. I would agree that 2,100 square feet is worth at least that in that part of town. If we go back to the report, these clients are only behind $16,922. They have a trustee sale of 2 days, so it's probably not oh, wrong one. Sorry, that's this one over here. This one here has an origination date of 5/41. They don't have a trustee sale date. They recorded this late fee on that date. They're behind $28,000. They may not be able to find a way to save the home. Maybe they don't have a way to come up with 28 grand. Maybe they don't have any rich relatives or any way to come up with 28 grand. And that fee's probably higher now. But if they sold it, and if there's a value they got about $100,000 in equity. After fees and commission, they could put $60,000 in their pocket, right? And you remember that was the original loan amount in 2021. Chances are they paid that loan down some in the last 4 years. And so that kind of gives you a really good idea of what we can do to help. That was again something that I pulled up randomly over here. Let me go over here, Ashland and Temperance. Okay, so we go to this one here. Let's go to this report. This is the customer. This is the property. We do a right click. I'm gonna pick up just the very first one. 495 looks like a newer home. 4-bedroom, three bath, 2,000 square foot home. If you go in here, this loan amount was 2015. They're only behind 10 grand. We have a value of 495 roughly, and they owe 279. Here's another one that has about $200,000 in equity. And maybe they just don't have a way to come up with this 10 grand. And maybe they do, but it's worth it. Somebody going and driving by these people's home and trying to find out whether they can help them or not. And so that's on this side of town. We can go over to Clovis, or we can go over here by Copper River Ranch. It doesn't matter where you're at. Foreclosures happen everywhere. Tells you who the owner is there. We'll do another report. This one here, document was recorded in December. 788 was the original amount. They're behind 41,000. They purchased it in 2006. And let's do a quick search. This sounds like it's gonna be a big, expensive property. Copper River Ranch, probably well over $1 million. And we'll do the first one again here. Yeah, estimated value 1.4 million, 4.3. Even if they did it sold it kind of cheap at 1.2, they owe 788 plus 41. They have somewhere in the neighborhood about $480 to $530,000 in equity, and they're just sitting on it. And they're probably too embarrassed to tell their friends and family, and they don't know what to do. And this house has never been resold since it was built brand new. And so, they're all over the place. Again, I'm in Fresno now. For those of you in Visalia, if you have access, this is Bakersfield. Let's go back to Visalia. Let me go in here. We'll pull up a property here kind of randomly. This is the property. Loan amount's too small. I don't want to do this one because it looks like it's a second. It doesn't look like it's reporting right. So let's just pick out a different property again at random. That's not that one. So here's this property. Again, they bought it in 14, so they bought it 11 years ago. So they paid roughly a third of the mortgage off at 271, maybe a little less. Maybe they owed about 200,000. They're behind 15,000 for some people is just I mean, it's more than they've ever had saved up. And so we've got to look at what this property is. I'm assuming because when they bought it, they have a ton of equity. Not now. Let's go to do this one. We'll do realtor.com. The address isn't right. There we go. So 2,300 square foot home, 3 bedroom, 3 bath. Great part of Visalia, guys. 3-car garage. Estimated value of 579. The loan amount was 271. I would imagine they'd probably owe closer to 200,000 plus late fees. So maybe they owe about 220, 240 with all the late fees and attorney's fees. Again, 500 and something. I think that they have about 300 or pretty close to $300,000 in equity. So somebody needs to go and knock on this lady's house and say, hey, look, I'm here to help. I'm a local real estate agent. Everything that we do is confidential. Nobody will have to do anything until, of course, you sell the property. At that point, that's public knowledge. And they're everywhere, guys. It doesn't matter where you look. There's foreclosures everywhere. And so just really go out and find them, go out and have conversations with them. A lot of you have sat through this training with me in the past. Some of you have, some of you haven't. Anybody on here right now, do you guys have any questions how to find different things? Moan, you don't ask, I can't hear you. I'm gonna go back to the home screen.
I have a question, Mike.
Go for it.
When you buy these foreclosures, it seems like we have bought these tax sales or foreclosures before, and we have ran into issues after the fact where we own the liens and other issues that comes with it as well. And
Oh, absolutely.
how does it work with this one right here?
It's the same. Whenever you're doing these, you always want to do your research. So whenever you find a foreclosure, you want to, what I would do is I would go to Chicago Title or Stewart Title or whatever title company you choose and have them check the grant deed to see if there's additional liens. What you're going to find is they're going to be, sometimes I'll tell you about a first or a second. And that's what I always did if we were looking at it for ourselves, or we were looking to list it. Even if you're looking to list it as part of the listing process, you got to know of all the liens that are on this property. So you always start with escrow. Hey, we have a pre-foreclosure. Here's the address. Here's the APN number. Here's the people that I'm working with. Make sure that you have everybody that's supposed to be signing, and they'll give you the report. They'll give you, they'll do a prelim title report, and they'll tell you what they find instantly. That way they know what they're getting into themselves for this foreclosure. And you're right. There could be a first, there could be a second. Make sure you're not buying the second, because then you gotta, wait for the first or foreclose on the first in order to own the entire property. So yeah, if you're looking to buy them for yourself or for an investor client to get them to buy it cash, make sure you're working with a title and escrow officer that you trust and like working with, so they can do a grant deed or a title report and they can give you all the history on it.
But there is some unrecorded liens also that that doesn't show until you actually buy the property, and then
Yeah, if they're unrecorded liens, sometimes they're not collectible liens. It just depends on are the liens against the property like a mechanic's lien or something along those lines. Most of the collectible liens are recorded against the title and will be found in the escrow process. And hopefully they're all found before you close escrow. If there's any recorded liens that are not taken care of through escrow, then you can do a title claim on them and have the title company be responsible for missing it. But anything that is not recorded may not be collectible.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so again, when you get to the home screen, you're going to go to search. You're going to go to interactive map. Interactive map. By the way, guys, when I was in real estate, I taught myself how to do this. I didn't attend a class and learn how to do it. I was simply bored. I didn't have a lot of customers. I was trying to find a way to find new customers. I wanted to know more about the MLS system. And actually, I said that wrong. I don't think I was even finding a way to try to find new customers. I think I was just curious as to what was in the MLS system, and I just started clicking on buttons. Again, it's interactive map. This comes up and I go to show and hide, and I clear it. Then you go to layers, and there's so many really cool things on here. And at the time, I was paying a service fee. I mean, this is 15, 16 years ago or more. I was paying for foreclosure fee, foreclosure radar or something. I was paying a separate fee. I don't remember if that was the actual name of it or not. I was paying extra, and I had all that stuff for free for being an MLS member. And so these were the ones again that we were doing earlier. It works statewide, and so it goes off of a county recordings. And so you can go over here. How many like Santa Maria? How many like the Central Coast? There's God, guys, it's been a long time since I've seen anything over here in Morro Bay. I haven't picked this up in a few months where I've gone to look at it. Dude, I haven't seen any out here. Just people weren't foreclosing. But look at all this. You're seeing right here, even in San Luis, and that's rare. You typically don't see them over here in the Pismo area. All of this. I mean, they're everywhere. Maybe there's even some in Santa Barbara. Look, God, even some in Santa Barbara. And so you can pull up the entire state. And here's a cool thing. Maybe you don't want to do business in Santa Barbara. Maybe it's too far. Maybe you don't want to join. Maybe you don't want to go all the way to LA. But what if you did your mailing over here and you got one potential listing that wanted to work with you? What if you referred and got 25 to 30% referral back? What if you go over here to like LA or some of these other areas where there's hundreds of them, if not thousands of them, and you just start doing mailers? You start going through there, and if you got a 2 3% return, that means for every 100 mailers, you got 1 to 2 to 3 people interested in selling. If you got a 2 or 3% return, that 3 listings in our neck of the woods, it's $7,000 commission. Over there, the prices are twice as high, 3 times as high. So your referral check will be 6 or 7 grand on a referral. And so there's a lot of ways to make money. Look at all of this. But nobody's marketing it. And so when I found this information out, I really started looking at it as a way to find customers. I really started looking at it that way. And so it is just amazing to me that there's so many ways to make money in real estate using the tools you already have. You just got to be a little bit creative. So I taught you how to do parcels, county recorded, foreclosures, schools is kind of cool, especially when you have other ones. You can go in here and it'll tell you what the different school districts are. Let me get rid of them. Here's your school areas. Here's your school districts. And so if you're looking for somebody, if you have a client that only wants to be in a certain school district, now you can go here and start looking up at properties that only fit within those boundaries. And so that's another really cool way for you to look at different schools. Here's your high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. We can go all of those, get rid of those, and here's your high schools. Let me go up a little bit. Hazards, your flood map is on here. You got to zoom into a certain, you can't be zoomed out. You have to be in pretty close. And you're not going to see anything unless there's a river kind of nearby. So here's a river. And so now if we zoom in, here's going to tell you about your different flood zones, known faults for earthquakes, fire hazards, and responsibilities. All of this is here. I mean, it's all there, guys. Anybody living in the bluff areas over at Bakersfield, you can find it there. Let me clear all of these. Regional boundaries, current MLS listings. This one's cool. You can go to just current listings. These are just listings that are currently there. Anything that you see in that one's going to be your office listings. So you can see what the office has. And you can get rid of that. You can go to company listings. This is good if you're working floor. You can look up everything that the company has listed. Anything that the office has had pending listings all over. Anything that's been recorded as open houses. If anybody puts the open houses, then you'll see them on here. That one's hit or miss. Not everybody loads them on there. But again, where you see 12, if you click on the 12, it'll zoom in. It'll show you that there's 12 different properties there. You click on 2, it'll show you that there's 2 listings next to each other. And so again, that's your layers tab. Get rid of that. Expired listings, you have to go after what's expired in the last month. And you can zoom out. This is what expired and didn't sell in Bakersfield. This is the past 1 to 3 months. How about we can reverse it? How about you go anything that hasn't sold in the last 3 to 12 months that wanted to sell, and then you go in here and then you cross-reference to make sure that it hasn't sold recently, because these expires, and whatever hasn't sold, you send them a mailer. You say, hey, look, you had an interest in selling in the last year. The market's getting good. Tax returns are coming next month. People are filing taxes, and with all these tax returns, it's a great time to be back on the market. The great thing for you is that property values have continued to go up since you last listed. And so please give me a call. Maybe I can help you list and sell your house. So get rid of that one. MLS listed sales. So this is sales within the MLS system, past 7 to 12 months. And again, you have, if you go the other one, like sales that have been county recorded, it'll have all of that. Let's go. Bakersfield has completely sold itself in the last. You look at that. I mean, just about everything is sold. I mean, it just gets you great turnover. Great turnover means it's great economy for real estate. Off-market listings in the MLS canceled. These are hard. I don't know if you'll actually see many of these. It actually shows a lot. So Again, with the Rapattoni system, it doesn't matter if you log in a Bakersfield or Fresno's or Kings County. The layering is all the same. Man, that's all that I really got for you guys. If you guys don't have any questions, I'm gonna have an easy day. I'm gonna have an early day. Vincent over in Fresno, you got any questions? You good?
Um, Maybe one, yeah. So when we're hitting up like these foreclosures or pre-foreclosure, I think there should be a lot of info that we should learn beforehand, like other options. Because I feel like a lot of people, when they're losing their house, I mean, I feel like their last option would be to sell. Like, shouldn't there be? I feel like I would like a training class on stuff to talk about different options, like getting them forbearance or
Yeah,
postponement or
they can do a
whatever to actually help
forbearance.
them out.
They're typically done. The forbearances are pretty much already passed. They won't do another forbearance because they're already in foreclosure. But the bank will be willing to do a payment plan with them if they make a significant payment toward what they're behind. When when you get into the foreclosure process, the banks have typically already waited 60 to 90 days before they recorded the first notice of default, right? And so before they even recorded the first notice of default. So in California, there's a 90-day waiting period for foreclosure. So if you go here, the bank can do a foreclosure at that amount at 90 days in California. They have to record a notice of default and they have to wait a minimum of 90 days in California to do a foreclosure. You remember most banks don't want to get sued. They don't want to be made look bad on social media or the news. And so they wait 2 to 3 months before they record the first one. So by the time they get here, they can do the foreclosure. But because it's so costly in California, and because so banks are so slow with this, by the time it gets here and then here, 4 to 6 months, in reality, these people can be 7 to 8 months behind by now. And 7 or 8 months of mortgage payments to most people is a killer, especially if they can't even make the one, right? And so it's a hole so big that a lot of them can't dig themselves out. So where the education came in for me and the clients is I would have a conversation with them, Vincent, saying, hey, look, this is your house. The number one priority is there a way for you to keep your house and save your house? Do you have a way to pay the last 7 months mortgage, right? The last 14,000 or $10,000 that you owe? Do you have a way to get caught up? And if they don't have anybody, do you have an aunt, an uncle, somebody who can get that money? And the answer is usually no, because they've let it go so far. And you want to tell them, look, number one priority is for you to save your house. If you absolutely can't, if you don't do anything at all, the bank will foreclose on you. And if the bank forecloses on you, they're going to sell it. They don't give you a check for the difference. They get to keep whatever is owed to them, plus the fees that they have to pay to the trustee for doing the foreclosure. Anything that's left goes to the state of California. You ever hear stuff like the state might have some money for you? It's called surplus funds. In order to get the surplus funds back, you have to be almost an attorney. You don't have to be an attorney. Anybody can do it. But the process to work with the state of California, number one, is that money has to get turned over to them. That takes 60 to 90 days before the state even realizes that they got it once it's sent to them. So by the time you start contacting them, they got to find, first of all, the money that was sent to them on your behalf for the property that you foreclosed on. And a lot of people want to hire a paralegal or an attorney to go get those surplus funds back from the state to put it back in their pocket. The reality is that they didn't have the money to save their house in the beginning. So they kind of just give up and they let that money go with the state and they never go back and get it. And it just becomes part of state property after like 7 years or whatever it is, or 5 years. I'm not sure what that time frame is. So yeah, Vincent, you want to have a conversation with the client, like, can you save it? But by the time they gotten this far, if you're reaching your foreclosure, if you're doing this search and you're doing the last 30 to 60 days, like if you're doing the early ones, these are more than likely, these two right here can probably save their house because they're only a few months behind, right? They're only 4 to 5 months behind. By the time they get over here, they owe so much, if we take off the first one, that they probably can't save it. And by the time they get here to the red, it's almost too late to do anything. You'll find some of these red ones. Let me go to Fresno. I know that you work all over the place, Vincent. I know that you buy properties everywhere, but let me go to Fresno, for example. Let me see if I can find anything over here that has an auction date that still gives you time. recording date. So here, for example, this one has almost 2 weeks. That's enough time to get the foreclosure stopped or slow it down for 2 weeks while you can see if you can get a sale. But it has to be share that. But it has to be one where you have a cash buyer. Really randomly kind of
Like
click on this one.
for
Go
for like the ones that maybe you only have like 3 or 5 days, I've heard. I'm not sure if you can verify this. If you're able to find a cash buyer and actually get it into contract, that's able that the homeowners are able to go to their lender and ask for a postponement, saying, "Hey, we're in contract, we're getting ready to sell." Is that something that happens?
Yeah. So the ones with 5 days are most of the time almost not worth doing. In my experience, the reason for it, Vincent, is they're so close to the foreclosure that it takes the bank you 2 to 3 days just to get you the paperwork that they need to get it signed and get it uploaded. Like this one here gives you till March 26th. It's a month, more than enough time. You typically want at least 10 days or something. These are cash only deals. These are typically not going to wait for a finance loan. And so anytime that you see these red ones here are typically cash only buyers. And so just because the time frame is so short, a lot of these banks are done waiting. They've already completed the foreclosure. They're just waiting for the last step to turn the property over to whoever's going to pay the insurance on it or to sell it at the county court steps. So the answer is yes, Vincent. With a cash buyer, you can get the bank to wait, but by the time you get to the red, it's typically cash only buyers, and they're not going to let it sit on a listing while you try to sell it. With this one, you pretty much got to get a contract immediately for cash with some proof of funds and get it over to the bank immediately. So I have stopped a lot of them. I have a lot of customers that back in the day, the last go around 2010 and all that, they were buying primarily only these red ones because people waited too long. They were scared to lose it, and by that time they would just sweep in and try to get a good deal. But these are cash only buyers. Can you do a finance one? Well, I just showed you one that had a month's time before the foreclosure. Yeah, you can probably do on one that has a month. This one has till the 12th of March. So you have, what, about 20 days. That one you might be able to do a finance one because you can probably close a deal in 20 days. Here's another one. Let's see what this one has till the 18th. This one you could probably do a finance loan on. But generally speaking, what you don't want to do is put so much time and effort into one of these, and then the bank doesn't wait for the loan to close and they foreclose or sell it at auction. And so when it goes to these, I stayed away. This was my main marketing, was everything in between. I didn't do the bookends. You can do them all. If you're going to market, might as well market all of them, right? But for me, that's what I did. Is I did everything in the middle. These here, these red ones, again, were just, yeah, you can go off after them, but they're, if you have cash buyers, then it's easier. I wouldn't say easier, but it's more likely that you can get a deal accepted and closed because the time frames are really short on anything that's red.
Yeah. And for like the system aspect, like actually on the MLS, say like you were mentioning people doing mailers in certain markets, is there a setting where we could actually, instead of just having the map and clicking on each one, we could create like a spreadsheet of all the info so it's easy to upload to
So
like a
and I'm not sure that this one does it for you. You can go in here to display. You can do more. You can do measures. You can do maps. You can do routings. You can click on some of the properties. But I don't know that there's anything here that you can download to put on a spreadsheet. There's other companies that get this information and resell it to you, and they may have layers, but now you're paying for something else. What I did is again, for me, anytime I was working the foreclosure market, is I knocked on doors. That was always the most effective one for me. They're going to get your mail and probably throw it away. And so for me, when I was working my local market to do them, I would do, like this one, I would go in here and I would probably do this whole part of town. I would probably, there's four in these two neighborhoods. And then I would drive to this one, I would just dropping them off by hand. I mean, that's really how I was doing mine. That's what always gave me the most success. Um, but yeah, you can, let's see. In 1 second, you can draw. And then you can pull up everything that's in this area. Um, So there's a lot of different ways that you can do different things, Vincent. There's probably a different tool that I don't know how to use. That may be able to do what you're asking for, but I don't know the system well enough to see if it has one. I've never found one that'll create a list that you can print. But there might be. Maybe you can go in and play with the system a little bit. Maybe you find something that I haven't been able to find.
Yeah, definitely. Just check it out.
Anybody else with any questions?
Yeah, Mike, I
Yeah.
got a question. This is
Go for
Renee. This is Renee. When the delinquent amount shows on their property, is that because maybe they took a HELOC or maybe they have another loan on it? But is it the delinquent amount?
The delinquent
always
amount is typically what they owe in mortgages, in late mortgage payments. Plus, for some trustees, for some trustee banks, they actually include attorney's fees in that. But the
Mm,
majority of the time, it's just what they're late on the mortgage.
okay, okay. And so the when we see the beneficiary is the bank, the trustee is the foreclosed company, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In California, a bank cannot foreclose directly on a borrower. In California, it has to be done by a neutral third party, typically a legal company or an attorney's office.
Uh-huh.
And there's thousands of them all over the state that all they do is specialize in foreclosures. They just take on, they become the middleman, they collect the paperwork from the bank, and they start processing the foreclosure. And that's who your trustees are, or sorry, your trustors. And so that's why you see everything usually under a legal name, uh, doing the
Have you ever,
foreclosure process.
hey, when you were doing it and when you were knocking on the door and say you went up there and you were talking to the homeowner, and of course you realized they were in distress, and they said, if somebody would just give me a cash offer for this amount, I'd sell my house today. Would it be unethical for us to do that?
No, no, no. So here's the thing: when you're doing that, you're walking a fine line in real estate.
Mhm.
It's the reason that a lot of investors do not get licensed is they want to be able to not live by the realtor code of ethics and get great deals. So let me give you an example. If you have a property like we seen one earlier that they owed about $250,000 on that was worth about 500,000.
Mhm.
Because you're a realtor and you're bound by the code of ethics, you actually would have to say, hey, look, on the retail market, this property fully repaired would be worth about 500,000. I know you're in foreclosure. I know that we don't want to get some money in your pocket. I'm willing to close on it today for 350,000. But you actually got to tell them like your property, renovated, ready for a flip would be, or flip ready would be 500,000. I'm gonna pay you 350, and they got to sign it. Like you got to be that obvious with them. And when you're that obvious with them, sometimes they don't want to do it. Like, well, just list it for me then at 450, and I'll just take that. And that's where, as a real estate agent, you got to be very careful that you're not taking advantage of people, that you're being so transparent that you actually have to tell them what the property is worth. Like, hey, look, and as is, if we sold it on the MLS, I could probably get you 400,000, no problem. I'm going to give you 350 for it because it's a short sale and I'm taking the risk and I'm going to buy it as is.
Right. Yeah, because that's why all these wholesalers, they give them a call and of course, they want
Yeah.
to pick it up for nothing, and then
Oh yeah,
they
they want to
call
pick
you,
it up for nothing, and then
and
they
then
sell it, and then they're taking all of the profit. Yeah,
Mhm.
I would say if you can list it and get as much money for that family as possible, it's the
Right,
best deal. Just sell it. If the property is in a state where it needs to be renovated and it's just in a state of disrepair, it's a wholesale properties. It's just they're gonna get a wholesale price, right?
right.
And so it's just you just got to have a really transparent conversation with the people. Hey, look, if you don't do anything, your property's gonna foreclose. You got a $400,000 property. I'm gonna try to get you about 350 for it because we got to sell it quick.
Yeah.
Someone's
No,
gonna come in, they're gonna get a fair deal, they're gonna be happy, you're gonna be happy.
yeah, no, I've done that a couple of times where they help people. The wholesalers had called them, they called me, and before I told them to make an commitment, let's see what we can get on the market. And I've always gave them more. We're always to get able to give them more money than what the
Yeah.
wholesaler. It wasn't a whole bunch, but it was more than what they offered.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the foreclosure market's one that we're gonna have a lot of business in the next 5 years. It'll take about that long to get through this backlog. If you could get another 4 to 5 deals a year on nothing but foreclosures at an average commission of $7,000, which is kind of the average right now, valley wide, in your pocket, 7 times 5. I mean, I would do that.
All day
What's that?
long.
35,000 in your pocket. I mean,
Yeah.
it just who doesn't want another 35,000 for just knocking on some doors. What's it going to cost you? A couple $100 in gas for the year?
Right.
And so there's money to be made here. And that's just if you did a few of them. I mean, if you can really, you've seen how many there is. You can really do, your entire business can be focused around this in the next 5 years.
Exactly. Thank you. Appreciate all the information this morning.
Of course, anytime of day. All right, let me stop the share. All right, guys, I don't have any other questions, but if you guys have anything for me, send me an email. I'll do what I can for you. We're here to help you guys. We want to do the trainings that you guys are asking for. Thank you again. We have a sales meeting tomorrow in Visalia, 9 a.m. In our normal place. So we'll hopefully go tour some properties afterwards. If we have anything on tour, I haven't checked yet. But I look forward to seeing all of you hopefully in person sometime this week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.